Hello, everyone. Is it super hot outside again? Yes. It's probably going to be super hot outside where I'm at for a good long while, honestly. Probably going to be super hot out here for a good long while. No idea, honestly, when things are going to let up. It sucks, dude. It sucks. Southern summers are just like this, though. I mean, that's just how it is. After the end of August, things will start to cool down. I mean, honestly, even by mid-August, things will have started to cool down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, July is going to be a fucking intense month. The end of June is always a pretty intense time as far as heat goes. Oh, it sucks. It sucks. It sucks a lot. You could say Trump really dropped the hammer? I don't know. I guess you could, yeah. I guess you could. What's up, cutie? Thanks. Yeah, no, I don't know. Trump has been pressuring NATO for years to increase its collective military spending, and now NATO has pledged to increase its collective military spending. So it'll be interesting to see how the narrative shifts after this, because for a long time, part of the justification the conservatives have used for not wanting to have universal health care is, well, the only reason these other countries have universal health care is because we fund so much of their defense. And if they properly funded their defense, they couldn't afford this universal health care. But none of these countries have announced some change in their universal health care system. The spending hike only makes it 5% of GDP. So I really don't think that I feel like that rhetoric isn't going to be able to hold on much longer among certain conservatives, but I'm sure among a certain group it will probably hold on forever. I mean, there are just some people who they've got it in their heads how things are and what's important and what's not, and you're never going to convince certain people, sure, but I do think that there are some people who are probably going to be pulled over by the fact that NATO is now funding its military more heavily with collective funding, and it'll be interesting to see how the narrative shifts in regards to universal health care as a result of that. I just came by to ban some trolls really quick. Well, thanks, Glitch Dash. You know, you're always an additive here in the community. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen as to the rhetoric, but I'm hoping that this will possibly open up the conversation of maybe lowering America's military budget. But I don't really think it will. I mean, the fucking sad thing is about when the war drum starts beating, you better be ready for Americans to start justifying their own fucking exploitation. Because for some reason, as soon as the war drum starts beating, the military budget becomes even less of a fucking thing that you can attack, right? During peacetime, you can kind of argue, like, hey, we don't need this. We don't need to spend all this money. Why are we building up our military like this? But as soon as the military starts engaging in some kind of needless conflict abroad, um, out come all the people who argue that that represents some kind of danger that we have to respond to, even though we are almost always the ones incurring the danger. One of the European countries said that they would need to scale back their healthcare. I can't remember if it was Scandinavia or one of the smaller countries, but it is starting to happen. Well, I mean, Scandinavia isn't a country in and of itself. Scandinavia refers to a region that includes Finland, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands. Yeah, I think that's what it includes. Pretty sure that's the areas that are included in Scandinavia. So yeah, it's the fjordic countries, you know. But it'll be interesting to see what scaling back their healthcare means in a universal healthcare system. Yes, I believe it is one of those countries. Well, the thing about those countries is that a lot of those countries provide so fucking much in their universal healthcare that scaling that back might not mean what scaling back means here, right? When someone talks about scaling back Medicaid or Medicare here, it's frightening and it's scary to think about, and we don't really like the idea because Medicaid and Medicare already cover so little. It's already not as useful as a universal healthcare system in another country would be, right? And so scaling back universal healthcare means, in my opinion, it's a little less consequential than the same idea if you applied it to the healthcare system here in America. You know, if you take a wonderful system and you scale it back to where it's just pretty good, you're still left with a pretty good system. What is this? This is whatever the chat wants it to be. This is a chat-based conversation, well, something like a conversation that we do over the internet. And if you like it, you can support me either by donating through Cash App or through the Super Chat option. And like the stream, because that helps push it out to as many people as possible. We mostly discuss current events, politics, and news here, but we also occasionally discuss philosophy, religion, gender, like gender theory, all kinds of stuff. Gardening sometimes. I just bought an ounce for $78 and it's fire. Wish I could share it with you. Oh my god, Glitch Dash. I wish you could too. I really wish you could. I need some fucking pot so bad. Literally, I need some fucking weed so goddamn bad. But Super Chat revenue doesn't become available until the month after it's earned. And that's only if you make the threshold, which I have, you know. So I will get paid in July, but it's a long ways away yet. So I wish you could share some of that with me. Just send it through the mail. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's definitely true, although it may still cause outcry for people who've had such a good healthcare system for a long time to see change, even if it will be small. Yeah, and there are other options too. I'm sure whatever leader said that is probably assuming that that's the way things will go based on their understandings um, about their country's politics and shit. But I guarantee you that that country has other options too, right? They could probably increase taxes. They could maybe introduce a tariff here or there. They could. There's ways that they could generate revenue to make up for the increase of spending. You know, because like that's the thing when it comes to tax-based spending, right? When it comes to tax revenue, anytime you spend, you have to increase revenue in some way, and that means taxing somebody. That means taxes or tariffs. You know. LOL, don't tempt me. Get a job? No, I'd rather a job get me, bro. I mean, if the people don't mind the increase in taxes, sure. Well, I guess it just depends on the arguments to be made, right? Well, that's what I'm saying is that whoever made that statement is probably basing it off of the presupposition that the people aren't going to want to pay a higher rate of taxes just to make up for uh, basically Trump's forcing them to pay more. Not forcing them literally, but they've got all of this intense pressure to increase their military spending. And I'm sure the people of these countries aren't about that, because a lot of the people of these countries are pretty glad that their country hasn't been deeply involved in a war in about 80 years, right? I'm sure a lot of these countries are pretty happy about that. And so I'm sure that a lot of them are not going to like the idea of paying more in taxes to justify a war effort and a military spending effort that they don't believe is justified or necessary, right? But like I said, there are other ways to get revenue, right? Taxing the people is one option. Taxing your corporations more is another option. Taxing a specific export or a specific import is another option, Taxing capital gains a little more is another option. Um, I mean, they could consider this, right? Military defense is now being kind of like NATO is already a framework for providing common military defense, right? So what if there was a framework for providing common universal health care, right? Um, Revenue sharing of some kind could help these countries that are going to be paying more in military spending make up for that deficit, some system by which you spend a certain amount of money on your own domestic health care, and then you spend a certain amount of money on a fund that basically is invested and generates even more money that is redistributed amongst these countries on the basis of their ability to contribute to it, right? And assists in making up those deficits, right? I don't know. There's ways that they could regenerate this revenue without fucking over their people, and I'm hoping that that's sort of the strategy that prevails. We just have to wait and see, though. We just have to wait and see. I do think it's interesting, though, that Trump was able to convince NATO after so many years to finally increase military spending. That is kind of cool, especially because I'm of the opinion that that's going to enable us to make the argument um, to fiscal conservatives and shit. Well, hey, now we can afford universal health care because we can spend less on our military budget, because look at how much NATO has increased its military budget. Look at how much the other countries involved in NATO are spending now relative to 10 years ago. And that, I think, will actually end up being a pretty useful argument here in the future. But we'll just have to see, right? The developments of this country can take many different directions. Who the fuck knows what that's going to mean? I mean, just look at this fucking recent Iran situation. I mean, look at how many different places that went before it finally settled on this weird, shaky ceasefire that I don't believe for a second. Imagine how easy the citizens of other countries must sleep at night knowing that they have the moral high ground. Oh, yeah. Well, fuck yeah. For some reason, I've got the song God on Our Side, with God on Our Side, stuck in my head. Agreed, that is true. I definitely agree with that standpoint with NATO. Yeah, I mean, as things change in terms of their military funding, we could actually see a renewed movement in America from people who consider themselves fiscally conservative or adjacent to fiscal conservatives, who are like, hey, we can afford this now. This is actually a good idea now. But yeah, right now is a semi-unpredictable kind of time in American politics, but there are a few things we know. One of the things we know is that regime change is coming to Iran. All of the signs are there. Every single sign is there. Reza Pahlavi, just like 6 times just this year, has offered himself up as as an example of who might lead a future transitional government in Iran. He did so most publicly just a few days ago on June the 23rd. Came out and was talking about how I am prepared to lead my people into a new age in Iran. Didn't say it exactly like that, but you get my drift. He was also, it's not just him either. It's not just his desire for power. It's also the rest of the Western world apparently thinking he is, in fact, the right guy for the job. Because the Munich Convergence Conference, I think it was called, or the Munich Convergence Summit is what it was called, selected him as the best leader for a potential transitional government in Iran. And I got to tell you guys, the way that they're talking about this shit is in terms of inevitability. That's how they're talking about this shit. They're talking about it not as if it might happen, it's not being spoken of in terms of if, it's being spoken of in terms of when. It is estimated the relatively 50% of all online interactions are actually AI generated. In other words, about half the time the people in this chat are actually just robots. Yeah, that would track. I mean, that would track, right? Because I would say it's only about 50% of commenters that I ever see interacting with the channel multiple times or interacting with the channel in a way that is trackably human. Like, here's a fucking thing you can do to test if you've got robots in your chat, right? Let's scroll down. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you're not a robot. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you're not a robot. If you are a robot, don't put a thumbs up. But if you're not a robot, put a thumbs up in the chat. I don't think anybody specifically is not human, but I want to test this shit. I want to show that Glitch Dash is right. Put a thumb in the chat if you're a robot. Because I'm of the opinion that these AI chatbots are designed not to do things directly. Like, I don't think that they are designed to respond to people's requests and shit. I think that they're designed to get a general idea of what a person is talking about based on some sort of translated transcript, and then they use some kind of language model to simulate replies. But if you just say something like put a thumbs up in the chat, the bot doesn't know how to respond to that, because it's context-based responses that it's used to generating. Yeah, we got a thumbs up, a thumbs down. I don't know how to put a thumbs up, LOL. You're definitely a human. I just got here, LOL. I'm real. Definitely a human. Robots are evolving right in front of us. Don't be so sure they can't hit like. That is true. I mean, they are, like, literally, there are robots now that can solve CAPTCHAs. So you're 100% right. Looks like there's only 2. Yeah. So what? Use AI to your advantage? Well, I'm not talking any shit about AI. Keep that in mind, right? All I'm doing is proving that Glitch Dash is correct when Glitch Dash says that there is a preponderance of commenters and AI interactors and shit on the online space. I think that the internet has become chock full of fake interactions and bullshit. But I do think that AI is still a tool that can be used to people's advantage. I think that you can do quite a bit with AI if you're just smart about how you use it, Like, AI is already incredibly useful in the world of art, like helping to make things more interesting, helping to make backgrounds, helping to make songs even. I mean, I, as a songwriter, will use Suno to help me get an idea for how a song might sound before I start fucking around with it myself, John Oliver just had a really good piece about AI slop. It's on YouTube for free. Talks about how Pinterest is overrun by AI. Yeah, I mean, that's the sad fucking thing about AI, is that I genuinely think the problem with it right now, right, is that we are going through some growing pains when it comes to the technology. And one of those growing pains is people not really knowing how to use it. People not taking it seriously enough to develop it as a skill, because that's what it's going to take for AI shit to become interesting, right? Because if you just type some fucking bullshit garbage into chat gpt and tell it to generate a picture on the basis of that, yeah, it's going to come up with clearly AI soulless bullshit. But if you pour your heart and soul out into like a 3-paragraph prompt that gives the finest fucking details of everything in that picture, and then you iterate on that like 20 or 30 times, you can eventually come up with something that is at the very least eye-catching and interesting, if not altogether too soulful. And then all you have to do is take that and make it your own. Add a human touch to it, make it something soulful. And I think in that way, AI can be incredibly interesting and incredibly useful. And it's also worth mentioning that because it's already come this far, once we get over these growing pains, once companies figure out how to get like company versions of this, where they've got their own server and data center and everything hosting it, and every one of their stores has access to the same, or every one of their offices has access to the same like mainframe AI, basically. Once that becomes a reality, and these generative AI models can be used creatively by the corporate world, we're fucked. If you're an artist that works for a living, you're fucked. Because there's going to come a time, probably in the next couple of years, where the only artist jobs that exist are high-level artist jobs in film and conventional media, and then video games, they will retain artists for a long time, because it's one thing to have an AI come up with a generated image, it's one thing to come up with an AI come up with a generated essay or something like that, and it's another thing entirely to get an AI to come up with an entirely generated video game character or something. So I think there will be probably a time, like probably for a good long while, where conceptual artists and shit like that are still hired by video game studios, and where like the actual digital artists who go through and make the different models and make the images of them that appear on the video game and shit, I think that is probably still going to exist for quite a long time. But it's one of those things, it's going to become less and less common with every generation. And AI is going to spread in this way to every industry, by the way. I don't care what industry you're from, you think you're safe from it, you're not. I used to work at Taco Bell until a few months ago. I worked a dead job. I was a hostess over there when I first got hired. And by the time I left, I was working mostly drive-through and mostly backups, which means just like making the food and shit. Or making the stuff that the food is made from, I guess. The meats and the little tortillas and shit. Anyway, but I used to be a host. And the reason why I wasn't a host anymore by the end there, or why I would only come in for like a 3-hour host shift versus the old 6-hour ones, is because without someone running the register, they don't really need someone to be there that long. They just need somebody that comes in, cleans the lobby, and they just need that done twice a day, once during and after the lunch rush to make sure that things stay clean, and then once after the dinner rush to make sure things are clean before they close. That only amounts to 6 hours of work that are placed pretty far apart. And so usually you just get some other people to do it. Hence my being placed mostly on drive-through, because they were replacing me and every other Taco Bell cashier with AI-driven kiosk systems. So this is coming. Coming to a workplace near you. Man, chat is fucking dismal. Chat is fucking dismal today. What up, gang? How's the day? Hot, humid, and so far full of incomprehensible trolling. Here, I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm going to number one, I'm going to switch to all messages, and then I'm going to turn it to participant mode with a 1-minute subscriber mode and a message delay, because that will make things infinitely more readable in here, and that helps everybody's experience be better. That helps my experience be better. It definitely helps you guys' experience be better. And once again, if you want to help out the channel, there are 2 ways you can do that are best. You can like the stream, because that helps send this out to even more people's algorithm, and you can send a super chat or a donation to my Cash App. Send a Trump tip. you know, because he's been talking about like no tax on tips. I don't know how true that is, but he's been talking about it. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but I kind of wish it would, because it would make being a waitress or a waiter or whatever way more profitable. It's true, just passed. Did it really? Because I thought that shit was still kind of like dying in the Senate. My understanding is that the big beautiful bill has been in discussions for like 3 months now, and it's just been like spinning its wheels in the mud. But hey, maybe some action finally has happened on it. It'd be nice if it had. Monkey button engaged. Yes, 100%. We have to engage the monkey button. You have to be left with a readable stream, or else nothing gets done and nothing of import gets said. But yeah, no tax on tips would legitimately be a pretty based policy. I mean, I've said it once and I'll say it again. It would be really nice if at the end of the Trump administration I could look back on it and say, mixed bag. That'd be nice. It's been a while since we've had a truly mixed bag president. The last one you could even make an argument for was probably Obama. And even then, I think it's a pretty tough argument to make, because it's like the things he did good are so minuscule. If you're talking about things he actually did, things he actually had a direct hand in, we're talking such a minimal amount of progress compared to all of the shit that he normalized as a Democrat. All of the shit that he normalized by doing it in the position of being a national level Democrat, right? Anti-war in the early 2000s, anti the Iraq War, anti the war in Afghanistan, and it was Obama taking office and continuing those policies, never really getting our troops out, never really working to get anybody out, because they'd get some people out and then they'd redeploy them, and they'd get some people out and then they'd redeploy them. And that was the fucking cycle that America was stuck in for fucking ages. And Barack Obama is the one who normalized that. Barack Obama is the one who made it so that it doesn't matter if you're a right winger or a left winger. If you're in the presidency, you're allowed to do forever war, and your voters won't call you out for it. Barack Obama is the reason for that. If Obama had gotten into office and had actually worked on ending the forever wars, if he had been 100% serious about some of the like super fucking peaceful goals that he was touting on the campaign, on the campaign trail, couldn't think of the word for it, but if he had done some of that shit he was talking about on the campaign trail, I genuinely think that we wouldn't even be in this Iran situation, because the idea that a president could just get away with doing it again would be absurd. The American people would have a completely different outlook on it. But now even Democrats have been cowed into thinking that forever war and random acts of aggression are just something you have to deal with out of a president. That it's just an element of being an American, and that's dumb. Do you fuck with crypto at all? No, I wouldn't not fuck with crypto, but I really just don't know that much about it. And what I do know about it makes it seem like an even more volatile version of trading in the stock market. Why? Do you want to give me some Bitcoin? No, I'm kidding. Removing taxes on tipping may further entrench us in tipping culture in America. That's my only fear with it. I don't know if we should have tipping in the first place. Yeah, Black Lark, you're 100% right. It's one of those things with no good answer other than ending the tipping system. But nobody wants to do that because, dude, for whatever reason, mom and pop restaurant owners are seen as this like untouchable group of fucking people. And I think the reason is because restaurants have tight margins and it's hard to find a super profitable model with a restaurant. But the fucking thing is, I have known enough restaurant owners to know that you can get very rich off of owning a restaurant. You can get incredibly rich off of owning a fucking restaurant. And knowing that is what makes me feel much less bad about making these people pay their people properly. I don't think that we should be reliant on a tipping culture, because I feel like that just I feel like it basically passes on the responsibility of paying the customer, or I'm sorry, of paying the employee onto the customer, and the fucking like the cost that you're paying for the service is supposed to cover the cost of their being employed. That's how it works at every other fucking business, you know? Like valets make tips, but they don't rely on tips. They also make a wage, you know? Obama also drone struck children. That's what I remember. Well, yeah, Obama fucking increased the drone war massively, like incredibly massively. Obama was fucking a nightmare when it came to the drone war. He once again, Barack Obama normalized the idea of a modern battlefield, basically. The idea that we don't have war by sending in troops and tanks and trucks anymore, that we have war by sending in drones and intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's how we wage war now, and that's thanks to Obama. Barack Obama helped normalize the most insipid, tragic, fucking policy when it comes to war making that humanity has ever adopted. We'll just kill you with a PlayStation controller from Nebraska. Aw, thank you, Frey. I appreciate you. Money with no son. Wait, what was I gonna sing? Money with nothing in the chat box. Yeah, there we go. Money with nothing in the chat box. Wake up in the morning, start a YouTube stream. Stare at the stupid chat through my stupid screen. Yeah. What is this thing? I am a mystery to the gods and a nuisance to man. I am the snow that fell on the Rocky Mountains this morning. I am the water that will trickle down from those snowfalls in less than a year. I'm the sound in the trees on a lonely night. No, I don't know. Yeah, my pronouns are thing, that, please. It's, and its, please. No, I'm just kidding. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Yeah, a big part of tipping culture is that we use money. We use money here as a sign of gratitude. I want to say something actually before I read Black Clark's comment to Frey. I really do think it was super cool of you to use me as an example. I mean, I kind of used myself as an example, but I thought it was really cool that you took that and ran with it, because I really do think that these chats are a perfect example of how, like, if you come off the right way, it doesn't matter. Like it matters to some degree, but like I skirt around that by ignoring, for the most part, most of the really stupid comments, and by answering questions from people who I perceive to probably be bigots, but they're at least bigots who have taken like they've taken the tact, like, you know what, I'm gonna ask people about this, and so I'll answer questions that sometimes even have a little bit of kind of like antisocial implication in there, like, you refuse to answer any questions, but I'm going to keep asking it anyway, and then I'll answer their fucking question, because what's usually happened is that I've just not seen it happening in the chat, because things are going by too quick. But that happens. That's just how it is sometimes. I mean, you'd know that better than anybody, but people will get upset about it sometimes, but I really do make an effort to be the kind of, like, I don't know, I'm not trying to be like the model trans girl, because I've got problems of my own. I don't think that I would be like the perfect person to go out there and convince every maggot that trans people are actually cool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I would be the best person to convince every single Trump voter that actually wokeness is just kind of a brainwashing method that's used on them, But I will tell you this much. I have several regulars that visit my chat that I know for a fact are conservative, or at the very least right-leaning, and who openly disagree with my ideas when it comes to gender theory, but maybe they are, well, like Cenk was saying last night, maybe they're anti-war, or maybe they're, was it last night? Yeah, I think it was last night. But maybe they're anti-war, maybe they're anti-authoritarian. Like, I've even seen some of that. Like, when Trump deployed the Marines, I saw a little bit of a response to that from some people that I normally I think of them as pretty right wing, pretty pro Trump, but there was a few of them that came through and were like, this shit does kind of represent an escalation that we haven't really seen since like the fucking Rodney King riots of the 90s or like the Watts riots of the 60s. So like, do we really want to be dealing with this? Is this really the best idea, And when this Iran war happened, like when this like 12-day war as they're calling it, which I think is really I think it's very early to be appending a number of days to it because I don't think the war is over. I think the war is a damned far sight from over. But there's dissension among the ranks. I do agree that they tend to cloister back together, but how much of that recoagulation, right? How much of that recoagulation where there's some dissension in the party, it seems like there's some people that are breaking off from Trump, but then they end up back in the same camp anyway. How much of that recoagulation is because there's not a sustained, there's not a sustained tactic of reaching out across the aisle within the left, right? We just don't do that. We look at people that have voted Trump consistently or that have voted Republican consistently. We look at people like that as lost causes. We look at people like that as people that can't see the forest for the trees. They're unreachable. When the fact of it is, obviously those people are reachable because Joe Biden won the presidency in 2020 and he didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? Like it was largely a rejection of Trump. And clearly, some of those people are people that had to have voted Joe Biden in 2020 that voted Trump in 2024. If they can go one way, I'm pretty sure we could pull them back the other way. In fact, I'm of the opinion that we could pull them even further left than the DNC. And I think that that's what we should be trying to do. I will say this much. I do think that if Cenk's strategy is merely to show that the Republicans are so bad and to get MAGAs to start voting Democrat again, I think that that's a failing strategy. I think that there is no fucking win in the future for a there's no win in the future for a Democratic Party that continues as it has for so long, that continues doing what it's done for so long. And the Democratic Party is not going to change, and people's minds are just inoculated against it. So I do think that if his idea is just to get them to start voting DNC again, yeah, that's a failing premise. Because I think that no matter what arguments we make about Trump being an authoritarian, no matter what arguments we make about Trump being an ineffective politician, as soon as you bring up the DNC as the alternative, that re-engages their Trump brain because now all they can think about are all the failures of the Democratic Party. And you can't talk your way out of those failures. We can't navigate our way around them. We just have to, in my opinion, we have to separate ourselves from them. I don't think continuing to ally with the Democratic Party, if you're any sort of progressive or any sort of leftist, is a good idea anymore. Because the DNC has been openly saying for like 10 years now, we need to go more towards the right. And they've been actively doing it in their policy. So they've been saying we need to get more right-wing voters. We need to get more independents and centrists. When the fact of it is that the reason why they have such a problem winning elections is because they don't appeal to the very active and strong leftist base that exists in this country. The leftist base that is just fucking ignored, but that shows itself as existing, every 5 years? Pretty much every 5 years, this country manages to piss off the left enough to where we fucking rise up in our millions. So the idea that we're just not worthy of trying to gain the votes of is an idea that the Democratic Party has been losing on for the last 10 years. I think it's time we fucking say, you know what? You don't want us. We don't want you either. You don't want us. We don't want you either. We're going third party. Both parties are terrible. They use us to push us apart. Yeah, 100%. We need an independent president. We need an independent president or a third-party president. But we need one that is not allied with the Democrats or the Republicans. Because the DNC and the RNC exist to divide us, to tear us apart, and to make our lives harder through the pursuit of their bourgeois donors' policies. Hearing people talk about American politics as a former Republican this past election, you guys both sound like you're in a cult. Well, I don't know if you're talking about me, DeGoat, but I've been talking about how both parties are fucked up. I've been talking about how both parties need to be abandoned. So, you know, I'm not of the opinion that our savior lies somewhere in the Democratic Party. I am not of the opinion that that the victory of the working people of America lies anywhere in the Democratic Party. I'm of the opinion that the only way we get to that place is if we fucking unite under common goals. Common goals, truly common goals. Because there are a few things that, when it comes to American politics, both sides and many of the independents have pretty much agreed on for years and years. Universal healthcare being chief among them, but also housing reform and like an expansion of like what Americans derisively call the welfare state, and what I think we should just like be okay with it being called the welfare state, because looking after the people's welfare is supposed to be part of the government, you know? So the idea that it's like a bad word to me is kind of silly, but whatever. We treat it like one. Yeah, this is a very fuck Dems and Republic space. We need something new in America bad. Yes, 100%. Christianity in politics now? Yeah, 100%. I've, lost a bunch of weight. I don't wear the Sonic Chew medallion anymore, and now I talk politics. The working class was sold out to China decades ago. Yeah, well, we need to buy it back. I don't know what to tell you. Regular fucking people in America that work the jobs that keep this country going, our interests are not represented in the decisions that this government makes. They haven't been represented in the decisions that this government makes in a very, very long time, if ever they truly were. I mean, I think there have been a few times in American history where the American people have gotten up and said, we want things done this way. We demand change happen in this direction. And there have been a few times when the government has gone along with that, so I can't say that it doesn't work, right? Obviously it works. But it hasn't been working for the last 20 or 30 years, and we really need to start having some serious conversations about what that means in terms of our elections, like what that means in terms of our electoral support. Like, what way do we go? What I'm saying is that we need to start having like strategy meetings and shit. Whether you're a progressive or a conservative that's just anti-war, or a conservative that's anti-authoritarianism, a conservative that's like a constitutional conservative and you don't agree with the way that Trump just does things without congressional authorization and shit, if you don't like the way he flaunts the courts, but like we all need to get together because there are things we agree on. A single-payer healthcare system is better than a fucking capitalist one. A single-payer healthcare system is better than one where people's fucking healthcare is dependent on how much money somebody can make from it. That's something most people in America agree with. Abortion care. That's something most people agree with, at least a basic fucking provision for. So that's something that we could go after. But honestly, that's one of those social issues that I think would probably be best left to the aftermath of this party's victory, right? The aftermath of this potential third party's victory. I think that better goals to focus on would be infrastructure renewal, which is something pretty much every American agrees on, and economic justice issues like universal health care. Either raising the minimum wage, or what I think would even be a better option would be increasing the amount of government support for unions, like seriously increasing the amount of government support for unions so that workers have more and more ability to bargain for their own wages and shit. That sort of policy package could bring people over easily. We need a new electoral system where money isn't so central and it isn't the benefactor of all American people. Well, no, and it's the benefactor of all. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I tend to agree. It's just, how do we get to that point that I think is the stickler in a lot of people's minds, right? What would your conception of this third party look like? I don't know. Like I said, something that focuses most primarily on economic issues. Something that doesn't really concern itself that much with social issues, but is really adamant on things like universal health care, infrastructure renewal, housing reform. Maybe like an expansion of food stamps, or maybe even a universal food stipend, And personally, I think it's time that this third party advocate for a universal basic income. I think that it has been high time for one for a long time. I think that it would actually ease the burden on the market by making it so that these companies can afford to go over to AI a little faster on some of these things, because there are already jobs where these companies could, in theory, have an AI doing it, but they don't want to have an AI doing it because they're afraid of replacing that many jobs with AI. They're afraid of what that's going to mean in terms of people's consumer, like their consumer activity. Because if you get rid of every cashier in America, you've just deprived millions of people of jobs. Literally, you've just deprived millions of people in America of their job. So what the fuck do you do with those people? You know. So I think it's time for this third party to advocate for a universal for a universal healthcare system, a universal basic income, a food stipend or an expansion of food stamps at the very least, infrastructure renewal, and housing reform. I think if we focus on those 5 issues, made the arguments for those 5 issues, and said, you know what, we can leave the social issues to figure out later because there are things that the American people need right now. I think that we could get it. I think if we used the right rhetoric and took the right path, that's entirely possible for us. Totally agree with Zombie. Democrats over the last term acted in an absolutely ridiculous manner when it came to media, and then some. Oh, fuck yeah, they did. Like, the Democratic strategy is an old fucking politics strategy that does not take into effect the massive fucking, the massive influx of technology that has happened, and the, massive increase in people's ability to generate and receive propaganda. And that's the fucking thing. And that's just the truth. You have to look at it like that. Like, the Democratic Party was not very good at producing propaganda this last year, and they really were not fucking receptive of the way that people were receiving it. And so Trump was out there making constant fucking Trump propaganda, literally, constantly out there on the fucking propaganda grind. But the Democrats weren't. The Democrats were doing traditional commercials and a Super Bowl spot and appearing at concerts and shit like that, trying to do this 2016 era strategy, which by the way didn't work for Hillary Clinton either. It's like Donald Trump has used the same fucking strategy in all of his elections. All of the elections he's participated in, he's used the same fucking new media, kind of independent media, get in the people's ears kind of strategy. And the Democrats have also used the same strategy. And the only time they won with that strategy was in 2020, when Trump's mishandling of the COVID pandemic meant that he behaved so badly that now even the fucking Democrats' weak ass attacks against him were enough to convince enough people not to vote for him. UBI alongside housing reform would make America pretty great for a minute. I think we do need more domestic production of some goods that we rely on for the long run. Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's another thing that this third party could consider as maybe one of its issues, is the idea of bringing back domestic manufacturing, especially for some of these complex products that we currently rely on China and Southeast Asia in general to produce for us, and then we just ship them over here. I think that there does need to be a way to make an American cell phone that is cheap. I think there does need to be a way to make a car completely in America that is relatively fucking affordable. I think that there is, I don't know, maybe the fucking answer is to actually do some real socialist shit, and maybe the answer is to start a state-owned car company, or for the United States to buy out one of these car companies. Because if the United States owns the fucking car company, the U.S. does not need to, the U.S. government has taxes and shit. They don't need to worry about making a profit on the car. They just need to worry about covering the cost of manufacture. And that means paying people a decent wage. If you don't have to worry about a CEO's pay, if you don't have to worry about a bunch of bureaucracy pay, if it's just being ran by a bunch of people whose salaries are paid for by, I guess their salaries probably would be still paid for out of profits of the company, but they would be publicly accountable salaries, make it a publicly accountable organization that people have a fucking, that they have, what's the word I'm looking for? Influence over, right? And maybe we could get ahead of this problem. It's one fucking way that we could go about it at the very least. A lot of industries should be way more promoted in the US. I wish Trump and the fake Republicans actually believed that and not just making more money for donors. Yeah, that's kind of one of my problems with them too, is that they will talk this big game about bringing manufacturing back to America. But when you actually look at what they're fucking doing, that's not what they do. That's not what their policies lead to. Would that it were so. I totally agree with you, Blacklark. Would that it were so, right? Should force Gibson to get a grip of themselves and bring back true American made quality again. Or Martin. CF Martin and Co. also builds a lot of their guitars in fucking Mexico now. A lot of people don't realize that. If you're buying a modern Martin, you're probably buying a Mexican guitar. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like these companies like to fucking act like they're American made and shit, like to act like they're American classics, but the fact of it is most of them manufacture their bullshit in Mexico and Southeast Asia and shit like that. There are very few Martin guitars that are made in Nazareth anymore. Gibson isn't coming to the U.S. because it's more profitable and encouraged for them to use other countries for cheaper labor and logistics. Yep. You have to pay the rents and mortgages of Americans when you buy American. Oh, well, yeah. I'm on the right, but I can't lie. I found myself agreeing with a lot of what you said. See what I mean? I wish Frey was still here because they could literally screenshot that and use it as an example at some point. But yeah, what was your name again? Let me see. The Blue Baron? Yeah. The Blue Baron, yeah. You are an example of a type of person that I think I attract perhaps more than anybody, which is people on the right, conservatives of various stripes who still find enough in common with me for one reason or another, and find me down to earth enough or whatever to find me someone worth listening to. And a lot of times they can't help but agree with what I said because when it comes to my politics, yeah, I'll openly admit I consider myself a leftist. I consider myself kind of a post-leftist. But I also acknowledge that there are policies that have been, in my opinion, co-opted by the Republican Party that are good policies, even if the Republicans are the ones saying it, you know? Like, good policy doesn't suddenly become bad policy because a Republican says it. Same thing for a Democrat. Just because a Democrat says it doesn't make it bad policy. You know what I mean? I'm a person that rejects the power of both parties. Well, I don't reject their power, I guess, but I reject their right to have that power. I reject the idea that merely because these parties are the popular ones, and merely because some people cannot conceive of the rise of a third party, that they should get to win American elections endlessly, and that they should get to behave in the best interests of their donors, because that's what both parties do. I mean, both parties are filled with people who say one thing on the campaign trail and then say another thing to their donors. You know, Hillary Clinton and Mitch McConnell, Claire McCaskill and Matt Gaetz, all of these fucking people, all of these Congress people say one thing on the campaign trail and have something else to say when it comes to their donors. That's why some of the only people I trust in politics are people whose donation structure is almost entirely grassroots. If your donation structure genuinely is based on individual donations and shit from people in the community, that's one thing. Like, I think that that's how you should get to office. But if your fucking donation structure is entirely based on super PACs and big individual donors that are like billionaires and millionaires and shit, I'm way less likely to take your politics seriously because I know who fucking paid for your position at that point. I know who fucking got you where you're at that point. You might be finding yourself classified as being part of the right for being so moderate and reasonable. That's unfortunately what happens with moderate liberals with common sense. Well, that's the fucking thing. I'm not a liberal, you know? Like, you catch me on a different day, you might hear me talking about how the bourgeoisie has to be brought down in order to instate the rule of the working class, because we know how to run this shit better than people who sit around just making money all day from their money moves and shit, you know? Um, I'm a pretty fucking hardcore leftist, and I think that is probably what gets you rejected from the, I don't know, liberal academia kind of space or whatever. I don't know what you'd call it, but when it comes to that weird little clique of politically involved, Democrat adjacent, center left people, it's pretty easy to get yourself rejected out of that group, honestly. Just start disagreeing with some shit, you know? Like, point out that Joe Biden was a demented old diaper wearing fool, you know? Start talking about how Joe Biden didn't do a fucking thing for the American worker besides possibly the CHIPS Act and maybe some shit for the steel industry, and that's about it. Start talking about how Barack Obama increased the fucking drone war and normalized the idea of the drone war, normalized the idea of forever wars in the minds of even Democrats, you know? But that's why I'm saying that people who feel like you and me need to start figuring out what it is we agree on. What are some things that need to happen right now to make sure that Americans can continue raising families and owning homes again? How about that? Like, politicians love to talk about how the American dream has died, but it has. I'm the only person I know that lives on land that my family owns, that I'll own someday, you know? I'm the only person I know for whom that is true. When I was a kid, everyone I knew had parents who owned their homes. They've all sold now, and those homes have been converted to rentals for the most part. I found in recent years more and more people seem to bend their own perception and opinions in order to fit into the current classification of left and right. What the Democrats done to Biden was disgraceful. Man was a political force throughout his career. I mean, what do you mean what the Democrats did to him? What, like parading him out in the last years of his life? Yeah, I think that's pretty shameful. I think that's awful, you know? Joe Biden is now going to be looked at so much more negatively than he would have been if he had been made politically unserious back in 2020. If the DNC had not taken him as such a serious fucking candidate and had not lifted him to the positions that he eventually ended up taking, I think Joe Biden would be looked at way more kindly by history. But I think as a result of his fucking utterly lame duck presidency that he was foisted into by the support of the Democratic Party in his, like I said, in his last years, I think that because of that misstep, I think Joe Biden's going to be remembered pretty negatively overall. And it sucks because, like you said, man was a political force his entire career, and now he's going to be remembered as the dude who sat by while the world burned and America got worse. Exactly that. Oh, yeah, then we agree. The fact that he had cancer and they said he was fine, I know, dude. I fucking know. It's the most absurd bullshit. It gets me fucking fired up when I think about it, too. The Democratic Party is responsible for the current fucking stream of authoritarianism we're seeing right now in Trump. If you're a person who looks at Trump, even if you're a person on the right and you look at Trump and you're like, yeah, you know, it wouldn't really be my first choice for president, not gonna lie, but whatever, he's the guy on the Republican ticket. And I know that there are a bunch of you guys out there, I've had conversations with you. So, if you're a person like that, hear this. Trump isn't really the reason why he's in office. Trump's cronies really aren't the reason why he's in office. The reason why Trump is in office is because the DNC chose to allow Joe Biden in, like, cancer-addled, demented, old, diaper-filled Joe Biden to run as their primary candidate. And when he finally dropped out after a disastrous debate performance, one of the worst debate performances, if not the worst debate performance, by an American president ever in American history, or by an American presidential candidate for that matter. After giving one of the worst debate performances in history, he finally dropped out. And what did the DNC do? Did they hold an open primary to get somebody who was young and vibrant and leftist in there? No, no, no. They didn't even try. They just gave it to they just fucking gave it to Kamala Harris. They gave it to Kamala Harris because for whatever. In fact, I'm not going to say for whatever reason. I'm going to tell you why. They gave it to Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris was told by Joe Biden, "No daylight, kid." And the Democrats genuinely believed that the main problem with Joe Biden was that he was old and demented, and that that was the main problem, was people's perceptions of him. They refused to fucking get that their neoliberalism, that their fucking shift to the right, that their fucking fiscal conservatism, and their complete refusal to propose any actual fucking meaningful policy change and fight for it is why the left has abandoned them in droves, and it's why the independents have abandoned them in droves. I can't tell you how many independents I've talked to who voted Trump in 2024 that voted Biden in 2020 because they figured, well, Biden is so old that maybe the rest of the DNC will come through with all these promises they've been making for the last 15 years, you know? Maybe now that there's like a president that's not going to have a lot of will of his own, maybe they can use that to their advantage and get some of this really crazy, they wouldn't have called it leftist shit, but some of this really good shit for the American people done. Maybe we can finally get universal health care. Because Joe Biden was talking about having a single payer option. But no, we didn't get any of that action. The DNC is, they definitely went off the deep end in the early days, yeah. The DNC is too cucked to their neoliberal project to deviate from its plans. Those plans were forged by billions of dollars from our oligarchs in the minds of the upper middle classes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do not want to give up the fucking path they're on because they see the path they're on as not just the path of least resistance, but the path that's greased with dollar bills, baby. And as long as that path remains the path that is fucking greased with dollar bills and ends with them in a lofty fucking lobbying position at the end of their career, we're going to continue to have this problem. And the only way that we fucking tear down that slide is by mounting a serious fucking challenge to the DNC in the form of a third party, by mounting a serious challenge to the DNC and the Republican Party. Because I am telling you, economically fucking populist messaging gets you places. It just does. Look at the fucking support that Bernie Sanders had. Bernie Sanders had a ton of independent support. A fucking ton of it. Because despite all the rhetoric from super far right people against them, despite all the rhetoric from liberals against them, Bernie had a message that appealed to the American worker. Because Bernie said, we need to get the cost of healthcare off you and your employers' backs. We need to get the cost of education off of your back so that people can actually pursue knowledge. We need to make education better in this country overall. We need to spend more on our roads, maybe even build a high-speed rail system that connects America's major cities. These sorts of policies spoke to the American worker, and to this day, he's able to remain an incredibly popular politician on the left by being someone who constantly champions basic fucking policies that would help the American worker, and that have helped the American worker everywhere they've been fucking implemented. I believed Bernie Sanders would have been amazing, but then he bent the knee to Democrats. Exactly. Bernie bent the knee, and now Bernie is useless. I mean, I hate to say it, but now Bernie is fucking useless. Now Bernie is just another mouthpiece for the useless ass DNC. I wish it were different, but that's just what has happened with Bernie, unfortunately. Like, the course of his advocacy has led him to the saddest place I think a political advocate can end up, which is Bernie is now arguing for our oppressor. Bernie is now out there stumping, not for some genuine fucking, because here's the thing, if Bernie was actually serious about making change happen in America, I think that he should be out there right now saying the Republican Party isn't the way, the Democratic Party isn't the way. You know what is the way? Grassroots activism that leads to an independent third party that isn't tied up with the Democrats and isn't tied up with the Republicans and isn't made up of like an exceptional number of, outgrowths from either one of them. Because you know what? 35% of eligible voters did not vote last year. There's our majority. There's the group we tap into. We tap into that 35% of eligible voters, and we manage to get like 3 or 4% of Democrats and 3 or 4% of Republicans, and we've got a fucking supermajority in this country compared to what we have right now, which is nothing. Lesbians for Trump? I mean, all sorts of different groups have allied themselves with them, so maybe that's a real thing. I believe Bernie bends the knee because he thinks it's what's actually best for America and not for the oligarchs. I'll give him that. I think he's being used by his fear of the Republican actors. Yeah, I don't think he's right, but I think you are right. I think you're right. I think Bernie thinks he's doing what's best for the American people. I think he thinks that the Republican Party represents this tendency towards fascism that we have to stem the tide of, no matter what that means, enabling in the meantime. But I just think he's wrong about that. I genuinely do not think that the Republican Party is going to be able to find a fucking Hitler. I just don't. I don't think Trump is that. I don't think Trump is going to be the one who dismantles American democracy and turns us into an actual fucking autocracy where all power descends forth from him. Like the man is showing fucking the early signs of dementia and shit. He's old as fuck. Way older than Hitler was when he took power. We're talking about a dude who, even if he does manage to become some kind of fascist strongman, like a crazy fascist strongman that's actually got like power in the world and shit, like more than just like. Here's the thing: Trump has tried to do all kinds of crazy fascist shit already, but every single time he gets stymied. He gets stymied by some process or another, and like he gets protested against. He gets rejected by all kinds of people that. I guess he just assumes would support him. So Trump is not this like uber politician that's going to be able to skirt by all the fucking safeguards on our democracy and shit. He's just not. Trump is the most powerful man in the world? No, you are. And I am. Well, I'm not a man, but you know what I'm saying, right? We are all the most powerful people in the world because it is through our collective action that actual change happens in this country. Trump is only in the presidency because people voted for him. If he was to make the world a better place, I'm all for him having complete control of America. I think you would be all for that right up until the moment the lesbians got marched into the camps. I think you would be cool with that right up until the Christian nationalist gangs came for you. Yeah. I'm just saying. There's an article from a newspaper right after Hitler took power. There's an article from a newspaper, a Jewish newspaper, talking about how now that Trump is in power, we don't believe he will do all the things that he promised. He's not going to unleash the murderous mobs on us. He's not going to take away our businesses. He's not going to disenfranchise us. Trump and Hitler did, in fact, do all of those things. So it is very common for people to be part of a marginalized group and look at a fascist strongman, and it's pretty common for certain members of that group to decide, I don't really think that's going to happen. I really don't think he means it. It's not going to happen to me. And see, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that Trump doesn't even have the power to do half the shit that he's talking about. Trump doesn't even have the fucking power to do half the shit he's talking about. And regardless of whether regardless of whether he's granted that power by the Constitution or not, and in a lot of cases he isn't, the American people aren't going to stand up for that. The American people have already begun demonstrating in opposition to this Israel-Iran conflict. The American people have been demonstrating for a couple of years now against Israel's fucking takeover and genocide in Palestine. So The idea that the American people are gonna allow Trump to do whatever the fuck he pleases is pretty fucking stupid. America is literally founded on the idea of people getting up and demanding what they want out of their government. Hi again today. Nice to see you. Nice to see you as well. I don't believe he is a racist, though, at all. I see the leftist fascists, not Dems, lefties. They try at every opportunity to shut down free speech. Do we? How do we do that? Can you, like, define what you mean by that? What's up, Casey? If anything, we're just trying to speak freely. I'm pretty sure what this person is going to bring up is the fact that groups of college kids at certain campuses have gotten together and organized protests against right-wing political figures, but who fucking cares? It is up to right-wing political figures whether or not they go to a contentious campus. And it is up to it is up to the students whether or not they want to protest that. So, like, honestly, I find in a lot of these conversations that when people are making arguments for free speech, what they're really making arguments for is restricted speech in one direction, unrestricted in another. That's usually what I find in an argument about free speech. Generally, and like, here's the thing, I've got exceptions to free speech that I'm willing to fucking openly talk about, you know? I don't think that you should be allowed to just spread open, knowing disinformation, you know? I think that willingly and knowingly lying to the public should be a punishable offense. I think willingly and knowingly lying to the public should be a punishable offense. As far as opinions go, though, as far as interpretations of fact go, I don't think that should get you in any trouble anywhere, no matter what fucking opinion it represents. Yeah, America can actually be great again, but it won't be found by trying to be in the past, but using our will to build something great again in defiance of those currently in power. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. By every protest I have attended where I've been shouted over, intimidated, spat on, had drinks poured over me by them when you say something they don't agree with, nobody is pouring a drink on you because you just said something they disagree with, my friend. I'm sorry. I've been to too many protests. There are way too many people having arguments that don't escalate to that level. You gotta push somebody pretty fucking hard before they're willing to assault you. I'm not saying that you deserved it. But what I am saying is that I feel like you're probably misrepresenting your involvement in all that. No, they do. No, they don't. No, they don't. Nobody just pours a drink on you because you just said something that they disagree with. But if you want me to make up some crazy straw man about the right wing, give me a minute. I'll come up with some. Oh, but they do. Oh, but they don't. We can do this all day, bro. We can do this all fucking day if you want to. Nobody pours a drink on another human being because they said something they disagree with. You gotta go a little harder than that. So what did you do? Did you threaten their life? Did you call them a faggot? Just be honest. Like, what did you say? Because you're making it sound like you said something like, I think Trump was a better presidential candidate. And some lefty was like, that's not what happened. I know that's not what happened. So why don't you just confess your sins right here and tell us what actually happened? What sort of violent, hateful, genocidal rhetoric were you using that caused you to get a drink poured on you? Because I am not of the opinion that sort of thing happens unprompted. I mean, they may pour a drink on someone's head if they're wearing a MAGA hat, which has happened. I mean, if the fucking protest is rowdy enough, then maybe, I don't know, stand back away from the lefties. Like, here's the fucking thing. I'm not trying to victim blame here, but why is it every time I get into a free speech conversation with some fucking conservative, it takes one of two angles. Either they're talking about the college's shit, or they're talking about how they went and agitated at a protest, and the protesters responded negatively. That's what you were trying to do! That's literally what you went there with the fucking intention to do. Tell you what, there's a really, really easy recipe for not getting fucked with by a lefty protest. If you're a right-wing protester and you want to counter-protest that shit, how about you stand on the other side of the cops? Very fucking simple solution. How about you don't go over there antagonizing them? How about you go, like, try to go towards the fucking officers if someone does try to antagonize you? Like, that's the fucking thing. These people put themselves in these situations, and then they want to bitch all day long about the response they get. They want to get right in the middle of the fucking protest and then put on their fucking Trump hats and start protesting. They want to get a big video of it, and then they want to play the victim later on when they put themselves in that situation. And also, when it comes to like free speech is a legal issue, free speech means that the government can't fuck with you. Like, that means the government can't punish you for having a certain speech, for having like a certain opinion or whatever. That does not mean that people can't shout over you. That does not mean that people can't loudly disagree with you. You can't want free speech for yourself and not for anybody else. I do agree. Nobody should be pouring a drink on somebody else because of something they said. I don't think that words are violence. Like, I don't think that words are violence. I don't think that anything someone says should entitle them to a drink being poured over their head, right? Like, I do think the conversations probably go better if you don't do that kind of thing, but you cannot divorce the fucking situation from the context in which it happens. My great-grandfather was saved from real fascism as a kid. You can't just label everyone you hate as a Nazi. See, Sydney, I feel like you're the kind of person who came in here an hour into this discussion, and you heard me bring up the word fascist in reference to Trump, and now you just assume that I call every Republican a fascist, right? Right, Sydney? Tell me you stepped into a conversation and assumed everything about me without telling me that you stepped into the conversation and assumed everything about me. I genuinely don't understand how anyone past the age of 20 can be a Democrat. Me neither. Especially when the Democrats have been talking about universal health care for 20 fucking years, but they never do any serious action to enact it. Now's your chance to save someone else's great-grandfather from ICE. Citizens are getting deported along with undocumented immigrants. Yes, Black Clark is 100% correct. There have been a bunch of fucking reports of American fucking citizens and immigrants who have been legally allowed to stay here by some fucking court decision or whatever. There have been literally thousands of these cases where people have been deported to a fucking country that they don't even know the language of. They're fucking citizens. They just happen to be Mexican because their parents were fucking Mexicans. But no, you're only allowed to be white in America and maybe black if you agree with Trump. Otherwise, you know. You're actually what fucking Trump is weeding out? Well, he hasn't done a very good job, because here I am, bitch! Making more money on this shit than you ever will in your entire life. Be jealous. Bro, have you ever been to a Trump rally? No, there's never been one close to me, so I've never gotten the chance to go. But I hear they're pretty affordable, and I do want to go to one. I want to go to one, but I don't like. Is he even still doing them? Like, is there even much point in Trump continuing to do Trump rallies? Like, he can't run for a third term, you know? Mistakes happen when you're dealing with over 15 million illegals. It's not that hard to think about. Mistakes happen. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you know, Sydney, mistakes happen when you're dealing with 15 million Jews and other undesirables in your country. Sometimes the occasional German citizen with full Aryan ancestry will get sent to a concentration camp, and sometimes they will be killed. And this is just something you have to accept if you are to deal with the 15 million undesirables. Way to be a Nazi. Way to literally be a Nazi after talking about how your grandfather was saved from the Nazis. Making the same fucking excuses that Ben Ferencz hanged men for. Making the same fucking excuse that Ben Ferencz, the last living Nuremberg prosecutor, hanged a man for. That's a leftist talking point. It isn't true. Yeah, I know. Everything the left says is fake. Everything the right says is true. I mean, like, this is the fucked up thing about trying to have these conversations is that you assume, right, because I'm a leftist, you assume all of these things about me, and you assume that because something you hear came from a leftist source that it must be false. You are every bit as indoctrinated into the system's mentality as any of us are, but you probably have this idea that you're, you know, lofty and above it, right? And it's just kind of silly. It's like there are two different ideas of reality that are agreed upon in this country, and we, like, I don't know. That's why sometimes it's best to just kind of avoid some of these conversations, because there are just some people who have decided upon a version of reality that isn't reflected by any of the news fucking media that like the average American trusts. But there's a third of America that has decided that this version of reality is the real one, you know? This version of reality that isn't reflected by the AP or even Fox News, that's the version of reality we believe in. The version of reality as suggested by the most fascist fucking think tanks in America, you know? Our original sin is that we are all descendants of illegals. Yes, that's 100% true. Beautifully said, Phoebe. Thank you. Friendly reminder, please ask our host a lovely and polite, thoughtful question. Yes, please. Please, give us something to talk about other than this fucking completely bullshit notion that there aren't a bunch of fucking completely legal citizens being deported right alongside illegal aliens right now. And when it comes to matters like this, how do you argue with a conservative and have them understand, right? Because it's like, at a certain point, it just becomes throwing sources at each other. At a certain point, it just becomes throwing sources at each other. I say there is clear evidence to believe that undocumented citizens are being deported right alongside documented citizens. And you say, no, there's no evidence for that. That's just the leftist talking point. Okay, so let's Google our sources and let's see who we believe, right? Okay, I find the AP, and you say, oh, well, I don't trust the AP because they're funded by this, that, and the other thing, or I don't trust the AP because everything they say is leftist. And at a certain point, you just start realizing that this person doesn't really have any attachment to the idea of fact. They've got an attachment to narrative. And that's really, I think, I hate to do this to you guys, but conservatives, that's something you guys are going to have to work on. If you guys are really to come together with the rest of America, because you guys are not like 98%. You guys are like 32%, maybe. You guys might be like 32.5% if we're really generous. You guys are like a third of this country. So you guys, if you want something better than Trump, and I've talked to enough conservatives then like to know that they do, um, if you want something better than Trump, then you're gonna have to start working with people that aren't like you to get something better than Trump. And that's going to involve getting over this idea of everything is bad because it's leftist. Because you guys accuse us of that all the time. People on the right love to accuse people on the left of just rejecting any idea just because it comes from a Republican source, or just rejecting any idea just because it comes from the wrong newspaper. We get accused of that all day long, but it's really the right that fucking excels at that shit. It's really the right that excels in saying, nope, don't believe that because it's right wing. Or I'm sorry, no, don't believe that because it's left wing. Nope, don't believe that because it's leftist, you know? The more you argue with people on the right, the more it becomes obvious that really they don't care about something being truthful or not truthful. They care about it, and not all of them, obviously. I'm just talking about like there's a specific group of people who are like super indoctrinated into these ideas, and for them, it's either left or it's right. And if it's leftist, it's fake. It's got to be fake, right? That's the problem I have with it. That's the problem I have with it. It's working back from a conclusion. It's working backwards from a conclusion. It's saying, I believe this. Now let me find all the things that justify my belief in this. And let me reject anything that goes against it. A third, bro, we dominated the vote all around. No, you didn't. Trump didn't even win, I'm sorry, Trump did win the popular vote, but only by a little bit. He won the popular vote by like 2 million votes. In a country where like multiple tens of millions voted for each party. But you know who the majority party was last year? The non-voter. That's who won the most support out of anybody in the 2024 election. 35% of eligible voters did not vote in the 2024 election. I love immigrants. I hate illegal immigration into any country, not just the U.S. Stop calling me a Nazi, for that is like you calling yourself a woman. Every cell in your body says otherwise. Oh, okay. You know what, Sydney? You can go find another stream then. You can go find another stream then to be a piece of shit in. Yeah, laugh your ass off all the way to the band can, bitch. Motherfucker wants to get super sensitive about being called out for using fascist rhetoric, but then wants to turn right around and use some more fascist rhetoric. I'm sorry that I have not managed to coddle your feelings enough. I'm sure that there are some conservatives and right-wing people listening that are more than happy to continue having a conversation with me whose feelings are not the most important thing in their lives. The problem with what Sydney was saying is who's defining who's legal, and if they are only adding the greatness of America, why hate them? Let me see here. That's not what I was trying to fucking do. Whatever. Anyway, the problem with what Sydney was saying is that who's defining who's legal, and if they are only adding the greatness of America, why hate them? Yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems with what she was saying. There's a bunch of fucking problems with what Sydney was saying. But fundamental among them is the idea that it doesn't matter if mistakes happen. That's why I took such great issue with what she said. Because she's literally using rhetoric that the Nazis used. She's going to sit here and talk shit about how you can't just call everyone you disagree with a Nazi, but then she's literally going to turn around and use Nazi rhetoric. She's going to justify the deportation of completely legal citizens So in Sydney's mind, it's okay to fuck over some American citizens. It's okay to fuck over some American citizens if it's to benefit the whole. But I bet you Sydney would not support fucking over the rich people of America to support the healthcare of the rest of the country. It's a totally hypocritical position. It's totally fine to fuck over American citizens as long as they're Mexican. As long as they're Mexican, it's totally fine to fuck over American citizens. That's what Sydney believes. As long as they're Mexican, totally fine. As long as they're poor Mexican people, totally fine to fuck over American citizens. But if it's a rich white person, no, that's not right. Most illegal Americans I've met have more will and engagement to help than so many legal Americans. Fuck the legal/illegal dichotomy. I 100% agree. It is so fucking hard to talk some people into that, though. There are just some people who are addicted to this idea of some people being allowed to exist in their country and other people being completely deported and not allowed. There are just some people who are obsessed with this fucking idea of a rigid border system, and I think a lot of them are honestly obsessed with it because they have been sold a faulty bill of goods. They have been sold a false bill of sale when it comes to the nature of the economic problems in America, right? I was watching Onion Nuggets last night, and somebody in the chat said something like, the problem with reaching out to conservatives is that a lot of the time you will point out economic problems and they'll agree with you, but then they'll just blame it on brown people. And that is kind of the problem with American conservatives, is the fact that they have been told for 30 fucking years now that the reason they can't find a good job is because of fucking illegals. The reason they can't afford food is because of fucking illegals. The reason why they can't find housing is because of fucking illegals. The reason why they don't qualify for Medicare is fucking illegals. The reason why they don't qualify for food stamps is fucking illegals. The reason why homeless veterans don't have more support is because of fucking illegals. And they've been told that rhetoric for so fucking long that they literally, at this point, I think a lot of them genuinely believe that every problem in America would go away if we just got rid of every Mexican person. It's retarded. It's fucking retarded, because we can literally point at every single one of these problems and identify what the problem is. But according to the Republican Party over the last couple of years, the only problem in America is we got too many Mexicans. Too many Mexicans. So does that mean the rest of the world is wrong then, because they have rigid border systems? In fact, Mexico deports thousands of Central Americans who are not part of Mexico every day. Yeah, I don't believe in borders. I don't think that you're right for deporting people en masse just because you are Mexico or just because you're Germany or whatever. But I will say that I think America has an extra duty. Yeah, I do think America has an extra duty to take people on, because this land should belong to the Native Americans. You know why it doesn't? Why doesn't this land, the land I live on, why doesn't it belong to the Cherokee? Why doesn't the land I live on belong to the Cherokee? We have too many people overall. I thought birth rates weren't high enough. Which is it? Because some conservatives will say we don't have nearly enough people. Birth rates aren't high enough. Birth rates are falling. Have more kids. We don't have enough people. Yeah. But then you're sitting here saying we have too many people. Because we won the wars? Broaden it a little bit. Why were there wars? Salty, why were there wars? Legal citizens aren't having enough kids? Oh, okay. These are some really fascinating mental gymnastics that you're doing, Salty W. These are some really fucking incredible mental gymnastics that you're engaging in right now. So now it's totally right so now you're basically making the might makes right argument that, well, we deserve this land because we came over and conquered the Native Americans. Fuck them. We won the wars. Great. What a fucking humanistic philosophy you've got there, friend. And you're also justifying the dual narrative on your side of politics by saying, well, legal citizens aren't having enough kids, but we don't need no illegals. We do have a population problem, but we also have too many people. It's like, just, okay, do we have too many people, or do we not have enough people? Which one? You have no real knowledge on this matter? Wow, what a fantastic argument you've made, idiot. Like, you saying that I'm just dumb on this subject is not an argument. How about you make a fucking argument rather than just saying I don't know shit? Because I can say you don't know shit too. Yes, it's how the world works. You haven't explained shit. You literally have not explained shit. I just asked you a very simple question. Do we have too many people, or are birth rates too low? It can't be both. Modern day Mexicans are Spaniards and quote-unquote native tribes. Why are Spaniards capitalized and native tribes are in quotes? Why is that, Salty? This government, this country was founded on immigrants. I know that, and you know that. The average American knows that, but there's about a third of Americans who are convinced that they represent 98% of us, and they are convinced that this country was not stolen from immigrants, it was conquered valiantly. Autocorrect wouldn't add a bunch of quotes to that. That's absurd. No, you typed it that way. Why is native tribes in quotes? You didn't... Autocorrect didn't add a bunch of quotes to native tribes unless you usually spell it with quotes. Let's just say the quiet part out loud. We don't have enough of the right kind of people. Exactly, Black Lark. We don't have enough of the right kind of people. You know, legal citizens. You know, white people. It's literally white nationalist. It's like Christian white nationalist rhetoric disguised as regular Republican rhetoric. It's like, I know enough to, like, that's the thing. Maybe that's part of what people find appealing about me, is that I'm able to tell the difference between, like, a regular person that just kind of leans right or is somewhere in the Republican Party and somebody who has fully adopted the, like, anti-human kind of Christian white nationalist movement and has learned all the little buzzwords and all the little hidden phrases, you know. No. Salty, I have asked you a question about a dozen times now. You are not going to be allowed to say another fucking thing in this chat because I am sick to death of asking you questions and you feeling like you're too good to answer it. So there you go. I have made you too good to answer the question. There you go. You don't want to answer the question directly? Fine. Now you don't have to. They want us fighting like this. I mean, that's the exact same type of thing that I try to fight out against. But you realize that when you come in here saying something like you have no knowledge on this subject matter, you realize you're encouraging that, right, Jake? Right? Keep them fighting each other instead of united as one human race? Yeah. Keep them saying things like you have no knowledge on this subject matter. Because he doesn't think Native Americans are real because he's racist? Well, yeah, 100%. That's why I kept fucking badgering him about it. That's why I kept asking, why are native tribes in quotes? And that's why he didn't want to answer it, because that's one of those things he could not contain his thinly veiled anti-Native American hatred. He could not contain his thinly veiled disgust at the very idea of considering Native tribes a valid inclusion of society. But if we sent the correct funding and policing and training, it could be done correctly. The problem is there's too much racism in the world, in this country specifically. I really don't think the problem is racism when it comes to policing. I think that, well, the problem is racism, but it's only able to be a problem because of how policing works in this country. Um, policing in America is a brutish institution that mostly serves to protect capital interests in any given community, that very seldom is made up of people from within that community. And it's a really fucked up sign of the times how bad we've let things slip when it comes to our policing, right? Because, like I said, policing in America is a brutish fucking system that leaves very little room for human behavior. Simply declaring it does not make it so without any explanation, and it is very annoying. Yeah, 100%. The correct funding isn't the problem. The correct use of power is. Yeah, 100%, Casey. The correct use of power, right? Police don't need to be sent out for every fucking time someone is going a little crazy in a neighborhood. Police probably don't even need to be sent out for a lot of cases of domestic abuse, at least not first calls. Or at the very least, police could be, like, waiting on the porch, Like, waiting from a safe vantage point where they're not escalating the situation. They're not part of the team that goes in there and talks to these people and figures out what needs to happen. Like, there are all kinds of social safety nets that if they existed in this country, the police wouldn't be nearly as overtasked. And so the very fucking dull, like, how do I put it? Policing right now is just a hammer, right? And I think maybe police are always kind of meant to be a hammer. But the problem when you start using a hammer for things that aren't hammer things is that you start breaking it, right? And that's how policing has evolved in America. We have gotten to a point where this blunt instrument is used on every type of problem that inconveniences other people in any way has become a police matter. And there are no social institutions that are meant to prevent people from getting into those situations in the first place. And there's really no organization that exists to police those kind of, to maybe not police them, but to arbitrate those kinds of disputes and to deal with, like, mental health crises and things like that. The real reason they don't want us to learn the truth of life out there in the universe once we have something to unite against instead of our own race, they want to control. Well, that's the fucking sad thing about it, John, is that Jake, I should say, is that we've had something to unite against other than each other for a long time. Like, the ones who are in control are the people with all the money. The ones who own the politicians are the people with all the money. The ones who own all the fucking banks and corporations and shit, the ones with all the money are the ones who fucking own and operate this country. And people have been begging the working class, so people who aren't that, to unite against that class of people. People have been begging for that to happen for like 170 years now, and it still ain't happened. In my opinion, the reason it ain't happened is because we have never been successful as a mass movement. We've never been successful at the practice of convincing enough of the working class to join us in that, to be able to take over any of the major capitalist powers. So I think you would need to take over America with some real fucking crazy shit, some real anti-bourgeoisie kind of movement. You would have to take it over with, like, a socialist adjacent kind of movement to have capitalism really start to be overthrown in the world. Like, if America started doing things in a better way, in a way that was more empowering to average people, if America started living up to all of its lofty goals of actual democracy and shit, I think the rest of the world would follow suit pretty fucking quickly, especially Western Europe. I think I think we and they would be united in that, and then that would spread from us to the rest of the world as people saw, wait a minute, if America can do this and they can manage to continue being a wonderful country with widespread social services and lots of luxury to be found and all these other things, why can't we? And from there, you've got a fucking revolutionary movement in every little country on this planet. The Native American genocide has never ended. It was just ramped down when power is taken. As resources run thin, America never forgets how Native Americans were treated. It repeats itself. Oh, dude, literally. The American people continue to be exploited by America because every so often, reservation land just happens to be in the way of a big old pipeline project that the U.S. government wants to do. And so they fight them for that pipeline land. Usually there's a bunch of demonstrations, and eventually the government wins and fucks the Native Americans over yet again. And the Native American people are just kind of expected to accept it and go along with it. So yeah, it's something that really never ended. They are still a people that we consider very marginal. They are still to this day a people that we disregard largely. We look up to their ancient history and we revere their existence publicly, but we already treat them like they're ghosts. Keep that in mind. White America already treats the Native American as if he's gone. White America already treats the Native American as if they have been ghosts for years and years. And I do the same thing. I'm not excluding myself from that. Anytime you talk about Native Americans as if they just don't exist anymore, you're doing that. Like anytime you say the Native Americans used to, or something like that, unless you're talking about a tribe that doesn't exist anymore, you are participating in the erasure of Native American identities. And it's something that we do subconsciously. It's not even something I think that there's a whole lot of intention towards. How homeless people are treated is like watching the children of the suburbs go through a micro trail of tears. Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. Because that's what it is. It's people who, you know what the sad thing about homelessness is? If you actually talk to homeless people, not every homeless person, in fact, very few homeless people grew up in abject poverty. A lot of homeless people grew up in pretty fucking good suburban homes, and then through some kind of trial and error process of eventually ending up more and more destitute, then they ended up in a position where they were homeless through addiction or some other process, right? And that sort of thing is one of the saddest things about the homelessness problem in America. The fact that it's basically a problem that exists primarily because America stopped offering the American dream as something that people could aspire to right around the 90s. So from like the mid 90s, the homelessness problem has gone up and 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 up. And a primary driving reason for it that we all just want to sit around and ignore is the fact that we've allowed this country to become a country of renters. And as long as a country is a country of renters, it's a country of people who are 5 fucking minutes away, goddamn destitute. Because as long as your landlord can increase the rent however much he fucking wants, as long as your landlord can charge whatever the fuck he pleases for the fucking place where you're living, as long as that's the way life works, your landlord can make sure that you never have enough money to save up enough to move to another place. Your landlord can make damn sure that if you want to move to another place, you're going to have to live a very Spartan fucking life. We've allowed ourselves to become a country where people are disposable. And as soon as they are not useful for making money for a rich person anymore, they are done away with, thrown away like trash. That has to change if we are ever to call ourselves a good country again. Some states fly out homeless people to other states where they can form little tent ghettos. It's so sad, but if you think about how how we did the natives, it makes sense. The price of fuck you got mine. Yeah, it's the price of fuck you got mine, 100%. It's the idea that some human lives are worth more than others. It's the idea that, um, I worked for my money and I got here, and so my life deserves to be kept up at the expense of yours. When I think part of that is like they're righteous for celebrating. Yes, it's good to work for your fucking money and your own upkeep and to be actively involved in the living of your own life. It is not right to expect other people to suffer so that you can have luxury. No borders, no countries, just Earth. If we see ourselves as Earthlings instead of white, black, Mexican, we could focus on technology to take us to different galaxies. 100%. Yeah. I yeah, somebody asked earlier, do I see myself as supporting like some kind of world order where the countries are united and we live under some kind of one world government? And I think the answer to that depends on how that is defined and what that exactly consists of. But like, yeah, I guess, in general, maybe. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know. As an anarchist, I want to say, like, no, I support some kind of like hybrid system where there's still localized governance, but there are no borders and there are no countries. Um, I don't think the idea of like a one world government that can like pass down top down legislation that affects everybody on the planet, I don't think that's necessarily good unless you're deciding like to limit it to what can be democratically achieved. And if you're talking about that, then maybe there's a possibility. Because I do think that there are some things that we all seem to agree on. Um, like human rights can be defined by people who aren't bourgeoisie pricks pretty easily, you know. So I think that there's definitely room out there for some kind of conception of a one world system that still allows for regional differences in the legal system and in culture and things like that, but that unites people under a common banner of Earth. The worst is white people who go around saying that they are part Native American, but they have not produced a DNA profile. Oh, dude, literally. Like the Elizabeth Warren thing. Senator Spreading Bull. Humanity wasn't meant to conquer each other, it was meant to conquer the universe. I tend to agree. Well, I don't think we were meant to conquer the universe, but I do think we were meant to explore the universe. If we were meant for anything, I think it's probably that. Yeah, the commodification of basic resources is a chain on America. It's so sad that so many don't see it. Oh, yeah. The fact that housing and this pen is out. The fact that housing and food, water, even shit like electricity, the fact that this shit is something that you are expected to pay for at point of service is, I don't know, in my opinion, it's outdated. Anyway. Alright, to sail the dawn. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I believe we are best service living in harmony with the universe, especially if we leave this planet. For sure. Alright, I am going to get out of here because I am super fucking hot. I want to cool down for a little while. So I will see you guys around later, and thank you for hanging out. Thank you to everybody who super chatted.